Namaste. Hello and a warm welcome. Welcome to Akankssha's YouTube channel Multidimensional Soul and this audiobooks and talk series dedicated to Akankssha's son and spirit guide Arnav. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do subscribe, like and share this knowledge and wisdom. Do share your experiences in the comments. What resonates with you the most? What insights do you receive from these teachings? Let's keep this energy of knowledge and wisdom flowing as the energy loves to move, and this is an energy exchange. Welcome to today's episode, where we explore a profound truth, the eternal connection between souls. Today we are going to read chapter 28 from the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Inspired by chapter 28 of Autobiography of a Yogi, we'll uncover how our loved ones never truly leave us, even when they cross over. Their higher self remains accessible to us, and as we raise our vibration, we can stay connected beyond time, space, and even lifetimes. This realization has been deeply personal for me. My son, Arnav, once told me, "Mom, even if I take rebirth, my higher self will always stay connected with you." His words echo the spiritual truths shared by Yogananda and the wisdom of many awakened souls. Chapter 28 of Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Kashi, Reborn and Rediscovered. Please do not go into the water. Let us bathe by dipping our buckets. I was addressing the young Ranchi students who were accompanying me on an 8-mile hike to a neighboring hill. The pond before us was inviting, but a distaste for it had arisen in my mind. The group around me followed my example of dipping buckets, but a few lads yielded to the temptation of the cool waters. No sooner had they dived than large water snakes wiggled around them. The boys came out of the pond with comical alacrity. We enjoyed a picnic lunch after we reached our destination. I sat under a tree, surrounded by a group of students. Finding me in an inspirational mood, they plied me with questions. "Please tell me, sir," one youth inquired, "if I shall always stay with you in the path of renunciation." No," I replied. "You will be forcibly taken away to your home, and later you will marry." Incredulous, he made a vehement protest. "Only if I am dead can I be carried home." But in a few months, his parents arrived to take him away. In spite of his tearful resistance, some years later, he did marry. After answering many questions, I was addressed by a lad named Kashi. He was about 12 years old, a brilliant student, and beloved by all. "Sir," he said, "what will be my fate?" "You shall soon be dead." The reply came from my lips with an irresistible force. This unexpected disclosure shocked and grieved me as well as everyone present. Silently rebuking myself as an enfant terrible, I refused to answer further questions. On our return to the school, Kashi came to my room. "If I die, will you find me when I am reborn and bring me again to the spiritual path?" He sobbed. I felt constrained to refuse this difficult occult responsibility. But for weeks afterward, Kashi pressed me doggedly. Seeing him unnerved to the breaking point, I finally consoled him. "Yes," I promised. "If the Heavenly Father lends his aid, I will try to find you." During the summer vacation, I started on a short trip. Regretting that I could not take Kashi with me, I called him to my room before leaving and carefully instructed him to remain, against all persuasion, in the spiritual vibrations of the school. Somehow I felt that if he did not go home, he might avoid the impending calamity. No sooner had I left than Kashi's father arrived in Ranchi. For 15 days he tried to break the will of his son, explaining that if Kashi would go to Calcutta for only 4 days to see his mother, he could then return. Kashi persistently refused. The father finally said he would take the boy away with the help of the police. The threat disturbed Kashi, who was unwilling to be the cause of any unfavorable publicity to the school. He saw no choice but to go. I returned to Ranchi a few days later. When I heard how Kashi had been removed, I entrained at once for Calcutta. There I engaged a horse cab. Very strangely, as the vehicle passed beyond the Howrah Bridge over the Ganges, I beheld Kashi's father and other relatives in mourning clothes. Shouting to my driver to stop, I rushed out and glared at the unfortunate father. "Mr. Murderer," I cried somewhat unreasonably, "you have killed my boy." The father had already realized the wrong he had done in forcibly bringing Kashi to Calcutta. During the few days the boy had been there, he had eaten contaminated food, contracted cholera, and passed on. My love for Kashi and the pledge to find him after death, night and day haunted me. No matter where I went, his face loomed up before me. I began a memorable search for him, even as long ago I had searched for my lost mother. I felt that inasmuch as God had given me the faculty of reason, I must utilize it and tax my powers to the utmost in order to discover the subtle laws by which I could know the boy's astral whereabouts. He was a soul vibrating with unfulfilled desires. I realized a mass of light floating somewhere amidst millions of luminous souls in the astral regions. How was I to tune in with him among so many vibrating lights of other souls? Using a secret yoga technique, I broadcasted my love to Kashi's soul through the microphone of the spiritual eye, the inner point between the eyebrows. With the antenna of upraised hands and fingers, I often turned myself round and round, trying to locate the direction in which he had been reborn as an embryo. I hoped to receive response from him in the concentration-tuned radio of my heart. I intuitively felt that Kashi would soon return to the earth, and that if I kept unceasingly broadcasting my call to him, his soul would reply. I knew that the slightest impulse sent by Kashi would be felt in my fingers, hands, arms, spine, and nerves. With undiminished zeal, I practiced the yoga method steadily for about 6 months after Kashi's death. Walking with a few friends one morning in the crowded Bobazar section of Calcutta, I lifted my hands in the usual manner. For the first time, there was response. I was thrilled to detect electrical impulses trickling down my fingers and palms. These currents translated themselves into one overpowering thought from a deep recess of my consciousness: "I am Kashi, I am Kashi, come to me." The thought became almost audible as I concentrated on my heart radio. In the characteristic, slightly hoarse whisper of Kashi, I heard his summons again and again. I seized the arm of one of my companions, Prakashdas, and smiled at him joyfully. "It looks as though I have located Kashi." I began to turn round and round, to the undisguised amusement of my friends and the passing throng. The electrical impulses tingled through my fingers only when I faced toward a nearby path, aptly named Serpentine Lane. The astral currents disappeared when I turned in other directions. "Ah," I exclaimed, "Kashi's soul must be living in the womb of some mother whose home is in this lane." My companions and I approached closer to Serpentine Lane. The vibrations in my upraised hands grew stronger, more pronounced. As if by a magnet, I was pulled toward the right side of the road. Reaching the entrance of a certain house, I was astounded to find myself transfixed. I knocked at the door in a state of intense excitement, holding my very breath. I felt that the successful end had come for my long, arduous, and certainly unusual quest. The door was opened by a servant who told me her master was at home. He descended the stairway from the second floor and smiled at me inquiringly. I hardly knew how to frame my question, at once pertinent and impertinent. "Please tell me, sir, if you and your wife have been expecting a child for about 6 months?" "Yes, it is so." Seeing that I was a Swami, a renunciate attired in the traditional orange cloth, he added politely, "Pray inform me how you know my affairs." When he heard about Kashi and the promise I had given, the astonished men believed my story. "A male child of fair complexion will be born to you," I told him. "He will have a broad face, with a cowlick atop his forehead. His disposition will be notably spiritual." I felt certain that the coming child would bear these resemblances to Kashi. Later I visited the child, whose parents had given him his old name of Kashi. Even in infancy, he was strikingly similar in appearance to my dear Ranchi student. The child showed me an instantaneous affection. The attraction of the past awoke with redoubled intensity. Years later, the teenage boy wrote me during my stay in America. He explained his deep longing to follow the path of a renunciate. I directed him to a Himalayan master who, to this day, guides the reborn Kashi. We'll now read footnotes and learn about the technique that Yogananda used for connecting with Kashi. The will, projected from the point between the eyebrows, is known by yogis as the broadcasting apparatus of thought. When the feeling is calmly concentrated on the heart, it acts as a mental radio and can receive the messages of others from far or near. In telepathy, the fine vibrations of thoughts in one person's mind are transmitted through the subtle vibrations of astral ether and then through the grosser earthly ether, creating electrical waves which, in turn, translate themselves into thought waves in the mind of the other person. Every soul in its pure state is omniscient. Kashi's soul remembered all the characteristics of Kashi, the boy, and therefore mimicked his hoarse voice in order to stir my recognition. Now let's understand and learn what this chapter is teaching us. This aligns with what many modern spiritual teachers affirm: we are all multidimensional beings existing beyond linear time. The soul's essence never dissolves, it retains its spiritual inclinations across lifetimes. When we attune ourselves to higher frequencies through meditation, inner silence, and love, we can communicate with those who have moved beyond the physical realm. Their presence is not lost, it shifts to a vibrational level that we can access when we refine our perception. This understanding is at the core of how we maintain bonds with loved ones who have crossed over. The higher self exists beyond birth and rebirth, beyond form and name. It is the eternal aspect of our being that remains connected to Source. When a soul reincarnates, their higher self does not dissolve into forgetfulness, it remains available, always vibrating at a frequency that transcends physical transitions. Arnav's words to me reflect this deep truth. He knew that no matter where his journey took him, our connection would remain untouched by time. This is the same connection Yogananda tapped into when he found Kashi. And it is the same connection any of us can experience when we elevate our consciousness. We are never truly separate from those we love. When we understand the nature of the higher self, we realize that relationships do not end with physical life, they evolve. Yogananda's discovery of Kashi in a new form affirms this, and our personal experiences validate it. When we raise our frequency, we step beyond illusion and experience the unbreakable continuity of love. So, if you have lost someone, know this: they are not lost. Their higher self is always within reach. Open your heart, listen in stillness, and trust that love knows no separation. If this message resonates with you, share your experiences in the comments. How have you felt the presence of a loved one beyond the veil? And if you'd like to dive deeper into these spiritual truths, stay connected for more insights in upcoming episodes. Until next time, stay aligned, stay aware, and remember, you are never alone. Thanks so much for tuning in.
This is a series of audiobooks and insightful lectures brought to you by Akanksshaa, dedicated to exploring timeless wisdom and spiritual teachings. Each recording is generated with love, honoring my journey and my connection with higher guidance, especially in tribute to my son Arnav, who now guides me from beyond. May these words awaken the divine love within you, bring you peace and inspiration on your own path, and may divine light within shine bright. May whatever merit arises from these readings be for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namaste.